Still wet. This place is just so relaxing to be at. Take a sip of Red Bull before I do a lot of cutting. But the cuts came out money. Happy with that for sure. You know, the one thing I don't ever want to happen when I lay down a project is the edges to fail and sink. It's probably the most bang bang. Good morning everyone. Another chilly but beautiful day. Rolling solo on this one. Ben's home with the kids today. I'm not gonna finish everything today just because you can't when we pour the concrete pad, but looking to get it like 90% done, and then we'll wrap this thing up tomorrow morning. This place is just so relaxing to be at. If you guys play disc golf, you know what I mean. This course has been around here for a while now, and every year these guys do something to clean it up, put money back into it, make it better. This whole place is just pretty open. There's some clusters of trees here and there, but even those you can get in and out of them no problem. But most of the places off the fairway kind of look like this. Now walking through a bunch of thorns and briars and dense woods. And this place isn't like a professional level course, but there's a lot of tight gaps, tough holes. It's a good in-between course to practice on. It's right in the middle of not too easy and not too tough. Just a good balance. A lot of different shot shapes, good balance of that as well. Turnovers, hyzers, straight shots. If you play disc golf and you're close to Webster, Massachusetts, or within even an hour, I recommend taking the drive. You will not be let down by this course, especially with the sick tee pads we're putting in. So here it is, some leaves scattered on it overnight. I'm gonna blow that down. And then what I'm gonna be doing is taking the border pavers over there, and I'm just gonna lay them right on top of these pavers and get my curves right. And once I have them exactly where I want them, I'm just gonna trace the line. Let's just get right into the day, guys. All right, we got it money now. Looks perfect. I'm going to trace a line on the inside of those pavers with my pencil and get to cutting. That's it right there. You can get it from the Home Depot. They're like 20 something cents or whatever each. I always grab a handful when I start running out. It's more of like a crayon type material, so like waxy. It sticks on the paver. When you use a regular lead pencil, when you go to trace it with the saw spins so quick that it blows all the pencil dust right off the paver. So you need more of a pencil like this one. There's a lot of other marking tools out there and really like cool ones, but this is just the easiest to access, and honestly it works really good. Probably been using these for like 6-7 years now. Some people say it's a waste of time putting the pavers out, which can be true if you're doing like certain curves that really don't matter. You know, if they look good by eye, they look good, but there's some things where you really got to make sure it's lined up right. Put those right here, because if it's not, it's gonna show in the end. And this really isn't much effort. Yeah, you may save a little bit of time here and there, but you gotta bring the pavers over anyway. Now they're stacked up there. And it really didn't take me long to pick those up and put them back down, like, just didn't. Take a sip of Red Bull before I do a lot of cutting. Gas up the saw. Bang, bang. If you're looking at this right now and you see a lot of different like lighter colors over here, there is a little bit of moisture still on those. And also, these were the pavers that were on top of the pallet. And I always tell customers that pavers will lighten up a little bit from the original install because it's pavers that have never really hit the sun or the air as much as like the top layer without a cover on it. It's another big reason these manufacturers wrap the thing completely so that the color doesn't get faded by the sun on the top. But I wouldn't even really call it faded. I think that's really more of its natural tone without any moisture in it. These are the layers that were a little bit below it, and you can kind of see on the edges of them, some of them are kind of drying up and fully curing with the sun and air, but it takes a couple weeks, which is why a lot of people like to seal them to give it a little bit of a more vibrant look. But sealing has a lot of its ups and downs as well. I haven't sealed any of my patios I've done simply because I don't really know enough about it. Also the constant maintenance, it's not like you just seal it and you're done. It's just like a deck. Every year, a couple of years, you're gonna have to redo it again. But the cuts came out money. Happy with that for sure. So now that the cuts are done, I'm gonna not do the border right now, but I'm gonna hop to the front of it and do the concrete pad. Gonna be using this fast setting concrete from Quickcrete. You can use regular concrete if you want, but I'm using this to get it to cure quicker so I can finish it quicker today. So I gotta set the form up. There's really not much detail about this. We're just putting the form based off of these front pavers. Again, we're sloping it backwards towards the back of the pad so that where you put your plant foot is on the highest spot and there'll be no chance of a puddle there. I'm gonna have to pick up those edge pavers and the front pavers a little bit and just hit them down, make sure everything's good and solid so that I can pour concrete up against it and not worry about it. And then as I do the border around the sides, that's when I'm gonna hammer everything down in the middle on the edges, make sure it's money. If any of those pavers need to be lifted up a little bit, pull them out, put some chipstone under, level it off. All right, concrete's still a little bit wet to finish. Still soft, but what I'm gonna do is once that's set up decent, I'm gonna edge it one more time, and then I'm gonna hit it with that steel float, and then just hit it with a couple broom strokes, and that's all you need to do. My next move is to start putting the border in on the back. I'm gonna basically start in that corner, come over like to halfway, and then come down here and stop like here somewhere. I gotta set them a little bit higher like I was mentioning earlier and hammer them into place. And this is a really tedious job. If you guys see Benny all the time on the channel, just kind of going along the edges, you know, you can screed and lay the border in at the same height as the other pavers if you want. A lot of guys do because it's a lot quicker. You know, the one thing I don't ever want to happen when I lay down a project is the edges to fail and sink. It's probably the most annoying looking thing on any kind of paver patio. And that's why a lot of people don't want one, because they see it everywhere. They see patios that have the edges are all failed and then there's holes and stuff. It's really important to go through it and be meticulous when it comes to this work. I give 5-year warranties on all my paver work, my walls, my steps. And what that covers is if anything sinks or shifts more than 3/8 of an inch, I'll pull it up and I'll re-level it and re-polymeric sand it. For a wall, if a portion of a wall sank in, or if the capstones, the glue failed and they became loose, I'll go back and I'll glue capstones, re-adhere them. Or if a wall does really fail like that, I'll go back and I'll pull that portion down and fix it. That's part of the warranty. And to give that warranty, you got to really trust your work. That's why I am meticulous. I take my time. You know, I'm not as focused on getting in and getting out as much as I am making sure that what we put down is not going to need any warranty work. It happens sometimes. There's some things you just can't control. A little sink in a paver walkway or a paver patio, that's something that can happen. But the good thing about pavers versus like poured concrete or stamped concrete is that you can go in, pull those pavers up and re-level it. Because that same thing happens with poured concrete and stamped concrete, is when it settles and a portion of it cracks and breaks, then you have two uneven portions. And it's not like you can just go in there, cut that out and put a new section without it sticking out like a sore thumb. With pavers, you can just pick up that sunk area, fix it, and you're good to go. That's a benefit with pavers in my opinion. So anyway, yeah, we're gonna start over in that corner and start doing the border. So these are the same small pieces that are in the 3-piece set, but it's sold individually too. It's called Eastern Bay, and you can make nice running bond walkways with it. It's great for border. You could do a herringbone pattern with it, which I'm kind of curious what it would look like. I bet you it looks super cool. What I mean by that is you can do a pattern like this. That's a herringbone right there. And if you can repeat that, you know, it's a really cool look. Those are about a 1/4 inch higher than the other pavers. Just enough to settle them down a little bit. Still wet. Alright, now that we got them in a little bit higher and I set them into place, if we go to hit it and it seems to keep going lower than the main paver, it's not one of those things where you just stop. It means you're gonna have to pick it up and put more under it. Simply because if you don't, it's gonna end up sinking later. But you don't want to set all your bricks too high to where you're pounding them down too long. So you gotta try to find that balance, and sometimes it means one may be a little bit lower than it should be. I always talk about 4-ways when you're laying pavers like this, but on the border it happens. You can't go around just cutting all these pavers to skip a 4-way. It's a lot of extra work, and the way that the ratio is, they always like land at a certain point, like that one right there. You know, you don't want to go start cutting this just to bring it back, because you're gonna end up hitting one again, and then you end up making cuts everywhere. So the border is the one exception for me that you can throw some 4-ways in. This is a 5.5 pound hammer, so it's sinking a lot when I hit it because this is really heavy. And that's why I bought it, because when you're doing this a lot, it's better to have something heavier so you have less swings during the day. Something lighter, you're swinging harder and more times. So you just kind of pick this up and let it do more of the work because how heavy it is. It really moves these small pavers, but it's doing a lot when you hit them. So you always want to make sure that the level is touching all the pavers and it's not wobbly, just like a wall block. You can see we got a little bit more than 1/8, which is what we were going for. And as you pull it off of the border, you want to make sure it stays that same slope. Now I stop in the middle because I'll go over to that corner and work my way to it. That way if there's cuts, which there will be, they're gonna be in the middle. They won't be so noticeable on the ends. The ends will be nice and tidy like this. And then same thing over here. I'll start in the front corner and work my way back, and we'll cut those pavers so they kind of blend in the middle. So I'm just gonna put the rest of this border in, and then I'm gonna make concrete and actually edge the border today so it can sit. And I'll probably be bringing some more 3/4 over to just kind of grade around the area as well. So you can see that the trench we make is well below the paver, but also the bedding stone. And we've dug into the base stone. So it's almost like a little bit of a swale for the concrete to sit in. And then we're gonna slope that concrete up to just half to an inch below the top of the paver. So like I mentioned before, we started at the corners and went to the middle, and here's the cuts. Ended up making 2 medium-sized cuts instead of 1 small one, and then we had to put basically a half piece in there and just kind of chip the edges to make it look like the other ones. So we got the trenches all set around everything we've done. I'm gonna bring some stone here before I mix concrete, dump a couple buckets and a couple wheelbarrows over there. That way when the concrete is wet and setting, I'm gonna push the stone into the concrete, and it just kind of helps lock it in and cover up the concrete pretty much. So now we're basically just going to take the stone while this is wet. Kind of push it into it. And even kind of just step on it, make sure it's good. And then there's your edge. It is 4 o'clock and we're in good shape. Raked out this whole area. Got some stuff packed up. Looking sharp. Concrete's not super hard, but it was set enough to pull the forms off. I'm gonna finish this up in the morning off camera. Ben's gonna help me. But once everything's done, I'll give you guys another walkthrough. See you then. Well, hey dude, we gotta put this mat on. Some poly to get these 4 T-pads done. So I'm done. So this is all tight right here on this side. That's just gonna hook onto the front of the compactor, and then this clamp is gonna hook onto the back of it, and I'll have to tighten it. So let's get this set up. Hey, you got a rubber pad, kid. There it is. Bang, bang.
I bet it wouldn't even do anything with the pad.
Yeah, because it's so light.
It's so light.
This is me and Ben's happy place. Here we are. It's been all set up. People have been using it for, I think, a couple weeks now, week and a half. So we're gonna sweep it, blow it off, clean it up nice, and then we'll be able to do the poly sand. Okay, time to use this compactor with the pad on it. We got the first layer of poly swept in. There's a bag and just a touch, and then all the extra I just put right there for now. I can't run the compactor over around the edge in this pad here, but I'm gonna come in and get like probably like right here with it, and then we'll use that kind of polyurethane. Wow. Oh my gosh, dude, can you imagine having a polyurethane tamper? I forget what they call it. That's why it always trips me up. It's a weird polymer, like some kind of weird thing, but it's not like rubber, but it's not plastic. It's almost like a mix in between. It's super hard, you know what I mean? Like that takes a lot to bend it, but you're not gonna crack a paver most likely. Another bond tool. So we'll use that around the edges in the front, and also around these edges where I just can't get with that one. But I'm kind of excited to see how this works because it's a perfect size for doing this job. You don't want a super heavy compactor, in my opinion, dude, on your pavers, even with a mat, because it's not necessary, you know? I think the only time you want like a really big compactor on your pavers is for vehicular traffic. You gotta remember, all these paver things that you're putting in people's backyards is for foot traffic. Something like this is gonna be perfect. 2,500 pounds pressure, you know what I mean? I wouldn't want to put that big Honda on the pavers after we laid them, dude. Because if even just one time it breaks a paver or two pavers or chips a paver on the corner, dude, I'm done. I'll throw it in the woods wherever I'm at, dude.
Yeah, you can't risk it. That some of them already come chipping up.
Well, it's just like, dude, what is more annoying as an install when you're about done, dude?
Oh.
You're about done. And something like that happens, dude, it prolongs the job hours, and you're like...
Especially if you don't notice, and then you go back to it, and there's like 30 of them.
Right? You just did a whole line, and then you're just going, wow, it's packing nice. And then you look back, and you broke freaking 4 or 5 pavers, dude.
Feels like you're walking on 3/4 on your second pass. Dude, that thing's settled. That thing's settled. It almost looks like you didn't even sweep anything in.
I started coming down the edge here and I'm like, I wonder how that's gonna do with the concrete edging.
Solid.
Right? And I went right down the edge of that too. You want to be able to see the edges of the pavers. You don't want the poly sand up and over these edges. You want it to be just a little bit down, because that's actually where the water drains. It finds the joint lines and it goes down these cracks here. So if you have the poly sand too high, it's going to kind of prevent that natural drainage through those joint lines. But you also don't want to use that blower on too high of a speed, or you're gonna pull too much sand out of the joints. So all that haze is off, the small pieces are off. And obviously I don't have a hose or anything out here. I have a small hand pump sprayer at my house, but I've tried it on one of these T-pads before and it's just too much of like a mist. So I'm just gonna use a gallon of water, put some holes into it and spray it all over. You don't have to get too crazy or fancy with it. I mean, this is just a small area, but you want to make sure that you water it properly, meaning in the amount of water. You don't want too little because it's not going to set all the way through the joint, and you don't want too much because it'll wash sand out and it'll make the setting time or the curing time of the sand much longer. So I'm going to figure out the best way to punch a hole in this water bottle over here and get to it. Water bottle didn't work the greatest, especially the first one. Then I re-engineered the second one and it got a little bit better. Sometimes, even when you're using a hose with shower attachment, you'll get a little bit of sand to shift around, and you just kind of go through and, you know, move it around with your finger. You don't want to try to sweep it or anything. Don't do that. But if there's any really bad spots while it's still soaking, you can adjust it. But you can see the amount of water I put on it has standing water on the joints, and you want that because that's all going to slowly seep through the joint and fill the entire depth of the joint with water. If you don't put enough, you're only going to get a thin layer of polysand on the top that actually hardens, and that's usually the biggest cause of failure with polysand, in my opinion. When you start seeing polysand flake and rip on your patio, it means only a thin layer of it got activated. It was a lack of water. If you have the entire joint where it's always mushy and just doesn't set, sometimes that can be the poly sand. It was a bad batch, but also sometimes it's because it got overwatered. It washed basically the polymer out of the dust with too much water and it couldn't activate properly. So you got to be careful. You need to find that middle ground. You need to water it heavily enough to soak the joint thoroughly, and you also need to water it light enough where you don't completely screw up the activation process. It's going to be in the mid 60s today and tomorrow, with the low at night around 45. So those 2 days are going to be perfect setting temperatures, and this will be all set to play off of. Although I'm sure there's going to be some people who are sour. They can't play off of it today because it's going to be gorgeous. So that's going to wrap up this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the process of how we install these Paver T-pads. That's 9 down, 9 more to go. If you guys are disc golfers and you're anywhere near Webster, Massachusetts, whether it's a 45-hour ride, it's worth it. Great course, well maintained, and we have 9 of these sweet T-pads. But you guys already know the deal. Until the next one, God bless. Peace.